All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Or I guess we're still morning. I'm a little bit ahead of time. But this session is What is MOCAN? And today we have Cherelle Washington, who serves as the Director of the College Access and Career Readiness at MOCAN. Cherelle leads the College Access and Career Readiness Strategy and Network, as well as the Professional Development Institute. Cherelle joined MOCAN from KC Scholars, where she was Program Manager, College Savings Match, and Traditional Scholars. Cherelle has experience as an academic advisor at the University of Missouri St. Louis, program management experience at 2 college access nonprofit organizations, and is an alum of the Missouri College Advising Corps. Cherelle received both her Bachelor of Arts in Communication and Master of Education in Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis from the University of Missouri-Columbia. We also have Kaitlyn Venta joining us. Kaitlyn is the Director of Affordability for MOCAN. In this role, she continues her work managing My Scholarship Central, as well as collaborating with scholarship providers across the state of Missouri. Before her work with My Scholarship Central, Kaitlyn led the graduate support team at Marion Middle School. She has also worked in campus ministry and was a member of the Venetian Service Corps. Kaitlyn has a bachelor's degree in religion from Duke University. And I will turn it over to you, ladies.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. And good morning to those of you who were able to join us this morning. I'm sharing my screen. Is we all there? Okay, perfect. So Kaitlyn and I are here to talk more about like who we are as MOCAN. We'll get to that at the very end. But at the beginning of this presentation, we're hoping to share some data around where students currently are in the college going process and how we can increase equity across students obtaining a post-secondary credential. And so we'll get started. Sorry, it's super data heavy in the beginning, but we think it paints the picture or the framework or really about why we exist. And then we'll talk about some of the initiatives that we are facilitating so that we can get to more students getting to college, being able to afford it, and then also getting to graduation. Let's see if I can get my screen to move. Here we go. All right. So all this information in the beginning, we're preaching to the choir. You probably already know this, but we kind of want to set the stage. So why do credentials matter? One, because more education leads to more positive outcomes for students and their families and our country as a whole. Greater lifetime earnings, as you can see here, as your credentials go up, so does the money. Also increased health. And then 2, greater civic involvement. We need more people involved on what's going on around our country, in our state. And so the way we can get to that is hopefully through education. And then also benefits to the next generation. We're always thinking about like what I obtain, like what can I pass on to my sisters and brothers? What do they pass on to their children? And so it's just greater benefits for all of us overall. And then also why work matters is because who benefits from earning a post-secondary credential should not be dependent on race. As you can see here, this chart just shows you how many folks across the state are obtaining credentials, and it's based on race. And as you can see, Black and Brown students are the lowest on this chart of overall Missouri average. So shouldn't be determined by race, and it also should not be determined by socioeconomic status. So this chart here just shows you students that are Pell eligible, which is an indicator of low income for students, and then their graduation and completion rates. And every one of these scenarios, students that are earning a Pell grant are graduating at decreased rates than everyone else that is non-eligible and all students. A couple of barriers to education. So why aren't students accessing college? Why aren't students completing once they are in college? All these things we know, but it's good when the data can back that up. One is like students need to know how to go. So what are the different avenues that they can enter in after high school graduation? Because right now, traditional 4 years, not the top of everybody's mind. So knowing of different pathways will benefit everyone. Affordability, folks, once they get into a a post-secondary credential, like how do they pay for it? How do they be able to get through it without acquiring a lot of debt? Also, once they are at their chosen pathway, like how do they have the support to continue on to complete? And then a new one that has topped the charts the last couple of years is around stress. And so since COVID has been a thing the last couple of years, emotional stress has topped the list the last couple of years. All right, Kaitlyn.
Great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who goes to college, because some of these might confirm what you think, but some might be a little bit different. So we see here national and Missouri numbers for who's going to college. So these are looking at the percentage of students and people who are 18 to 24 who are enrolled. So we can see Missouri's numbers aren't that different nationally. We're a little bit higher in terms of Hispanic students, but we are significantly lower in terms of Black students. So that's why working with Black and all BIPOC students is one of the focuses of MOCAN. But it always surprises me that when we look at, 18 to 20-year-olds, barely 40% are enrolled in college. And so what are we doing to make sure that students who want to be enrolled in college are and can be, and those who aren't are still living a productive lifestyle? Next slide, please. Great. The real challenge here, though, is that for the students who do want to go to college and they are from low-income families, there's a huge gap of enrollment between the highest income families and the lowest income families. So you can see we've made a lot of progress on the lowest income families being able to enroll in college over the past about 50 years, but barely 50% of the lowest income quartile students are able to go to college. And in Missouri, about 1 in 4 students from low-income families go to college. And like Cherelle was saying, going to college has a huge impact on your future earning abilities. And so for these families to be able to make economic progress and to move out of poverty, college is one of the keys to that. We also are at the point where most high school students are low income. So over the past 30 years, we've seen a huge increase in students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, which is another indicator of poverty or being low income. And so we are getting very close to 50% of students being eligible for free or reduced lunch in Missouri. And in many districts, it's significantly over that. So as demographics change and as our student body changes, our support services and what we can do to help students who want to go to college becomes even more important. And about 1/3 of all students are getting federal financial aid, mostly through the Pell Grant, who do go to college. So there are a lot of low-income students who are going to college, but we need to continue to support them. Another really interesting stat is that about half of undergraduates are first-generation students. So first-generation has a number of definitions, but it usually means that neither of your parents has a college degree. So we're seeing more and more students who don't have a family culture or a family legacy of college going to school, but these students need specific supports. They need people to help them navigate life on campus, registering for classes, studying, and they don't always have the family support to do that. So that's where our college partners and our college access partners come in to help that. So overall, that percentage of first generation students is declining, and maybe that's because there just are fewer first generation students as more people go, but for students of color, many of them are still first-generation students. Luckily, we are seeing college going increasing among students of color, but the gaps are still there. So you can see for Black students, there's been a lot of progress since the 70s, which we love to see, as well as for Hispanic students, but there is still a gap between white and Hispanic students as well.
All right.
And so I'll pass it back over to Cherelle.
Thank you. Now we've talked about like who's going to college, where are they going? So after they graduate from high school, what are usually their plans? So most students, as you can probably imagine as you're working with your students every day, most students decide to go to a public institution. One is usually the one closest to home, and two is usually the one that looks the cheapest on paper, is not necessarily always the cheapest, but with sticker price is usually the cheapest. As you can see here, close to 80% of those students are going to public, 17% private, and the one that I hate to see is this for-profit number. Even it's still still low, but students are still going to for-profits. And then community college enrollment is declining amongst students going. So as you can see over here on the chart, where you're looking at the public 4 years, that blue line at the very top, there was a decline over the last few years, but now it's increasing back up for those public 4-year institutions. And then also, where are low-income students going? And so we're drilling down just a little bit further here. So the top choices here, I'm not a fan of this first one, but for-profits is where most are going because most low-income students are targeted by for-profit institutions to go to their institutions because they're shorter term, but a lot of times you have to take a look at the accreditation. Can students use financial aid? All those types of things. Students are also going to less competitive schools and non-competitive schools. And that's not because they're not able to go, they don't have the ability to go, or their grades don't match up with that. But a lot of times low-income students don't have the confidence, or two, they don't have the college advisors in their lives to help them match their institution. So matching here is very important. So a student's ability, matching their institution's ability is super important. And then as you can see down here, the 4-year institution is the 4th choice for low-income students. Also, college enrollment in high school is declining, so immediate enrollment. And so this means once a student graduates from high school, are they immediately enrolling in school or not? Some students want to take a gap year, some students want to go work. And so you can see on this chart here, the Missouri line is that blue one is declining. So students that immediately enroll right after high school, which we know from data, students that are likely to enroll right after, they have increased chances on graduating on time, because sometimes it's hard to go back. I'm sure many of you have students you work with, or either maybe yourself have taken some time off, and it's just hard to get back into that groove. And so we encourage students to go immediately after high school if it works for them.
And also, that was before COVID.
Yes.
Those numbers stopped at 2019, and we know with COVID, we saw even more drops. So we have a lot of work to do there.
Yes, lots of work to do. Thank you, Kaitlyn. And like I mentioned earlier too, we're seeing declines at the community college, but I'm predicting it to go back up just because more students are wanting to get right to work. And so I think this number will change over the next couple of years. And as Kaitlyn noted earlier, this is before COVID as well. So I think this was maybe the trend before COVID, but after COVID, students are wanting to get to these short-term certificate programs, get in and out and get right to work. So I think we might see an uptick on this over the next couple of years. All right, and then this number was surprising to me, but nearly half of students, and we put an indicator here just to let you know, and this is only information from publicly available data that we were able to gather. And so about more than half of students stay in the state for college, but then a lot of students are going out of state for college too. I'm sure students are wanting to see something new. As you can see down here, that yellow line is in-state enrollment, and then that brown is total enrollment. So there is a little gap in there of students that are going out the state. I feel like we need to figure out ways to keep them in-state because Missouri has really great opportunities here. We want our students to go to college here. We want them to live and work here and contribute to our community. So I think that's something that a lot of institutions are aware of. And I think this is before COVID as well, but I think during the COVID years, lots of students stayed closer to home just because a lot of students didn't have a choice to. So I think over the next couple of years, we'll see more students stay a little closer to home. And so what students do after high school really varies of where they live at in the state. So as you can see here on this chart, we have this broken down, and this report was through SLU. So SLU has a research arm that works on college access data. And so they took a look at all the regions across the state to see like what are students doing right after high school graduation. Some students are joining the workforce, some students are doing 4-year institutions, and some are doing 2-year. On this chart, anybody you see in that yellow is representative of a 2-year institution, so that's where those students are going. If you see like that teal blue, I'm not sure what color is coming across to you, but teal blue color, those students are choosing a 4-year, and then that grayed out box all the way to the right is showing students that are joining the workforce. So very interesting to take a look look at, depending on where students live, is where they're deciding to go after high school. And I think that's an indicator for all of us to do some work around like, okay, what regions in the state do we need to focus on around getting students to college? Are there not colleges in the area? Is the college going culture not in their building? So just interesting to take a look at. All right, Kaitlyn.
So I worked in the affordability world, so we're going to talk a little bit about what it costs to go to college and how students are paying for it. So, wow, those are some steep lines going up since the 70s. College costs have just gone up year after year after year. We're looking at, between 5 and 10% increases each year. And aid has just not kept up with it. But we're at the point where even an average 4-year public, we're into the $20,000 per year. Privates, 45 actually sounds pretty good for a private for me. I know there's private institutions in our state that are well over $60,000 and $70,000 a year. Even that 2-year public, with a Pell Grant, you're getting a little bit over half of that 2-year public covered, but it's not covering as much as it used to. So this is also looking at tuition and fees and room and board. So I think a lot of times students can get enough money together to be able to pay for class, but are they able to pay to live? Do they have food? Do they have transportation? Do they have a place to live? And so we are really working on how can we keep costs down for students? What are the options? And what can we do to increase aid available to students, especially to the students who need it most? And like I said, that Pell Grant has, it's inching up. We're getting a $500 increase next year, which is great, but it's just not keeping up with the cost of attendance and the cost of tuition. And so the Pell Grant, when it started, it was just such an incredible program that was paying for almost all of college. And it held that way for a while, but it just has not kept up with the increasing costs of college. And so it makes a huge difference for a lot of students, but it's just not enough. So as a result of that, we are seeing low-income students have high unmet needs. So even for the best case scenario students, so a low-income student who's getting a full Pell Grant, who's getting a full Access Missouri grant, who's getting some aid from their school, maybe even some private scholarships, a lot of them are still having significant gaps that they are having to find a way to pay. So 2016, they were looking at a gap of almost $10,000. It is really hard to scrape together $10,000. A balance of $1,000, you can probably make that work. But a balance of $10,000, you are most likely looking at having to find another school, maybe a school that's not the best academic match for you, maybe looking at a school closer to home, but then you might be bogged down by home responsibilities. So we got to find ways to get more aid to the students who really need it for college. In Missouri, we are just seeing these gaps everywhere. So this is a great example of, kind of a picture perfect student. So they have a 0 EFC, they have full financial need, they get that full Pell Grant, they get full Access Missouri, they even get $5,000 from Mizzou. They are still looking at about an $8,500 gap. Hopefully they get offered and they can take out some federal student loans, maybe $5,500 there. They still have $3,000 they have to pay, and that includes taking loans out. And that's just 1 year. And so we are always working on ways to find more funding for students to be able to support them to be able to go to college. So what are students doing? How are they closing this gap? They are trying to get money from the colleges. So whether that's need-based or merit-based aid, the better grades you have, the better test scores you have, the more money you're going to get from the college. So really encouraging students to keep their grades up, to stay involved. Even as institutions go test optional for admissions, most are still test required for scholarships. So encourage them to take the ACT so that they are available for those. Students are also using private scholarships to help close that gap. So applying for scholarships locally or on My Scholarship Central, finding ways to pull in some money there. And then a lot of students are turning to loans. Hopefully they're finding an interest-free loan option or a federal loan option. But unfortunately, many students and families are also turning to private loans or the Parent Plus loan, which has a high interest rate, has to be paid back immediately, and can cause a lot of financial problems for students and families. And then some students just aren't going to school. The gap is too big and they can't go to school, or they go to school and they can't pay their balance off, and then they can't go back to school, which can be even worse than not going to school at all.
Right. And that really goes to our next topic is, do students graduate? Once we get them to college, are they actually completing? So this slide is very startling to me. About half of the students graduate. So as you can see here on the far left side, those are the number of students that graduated from high school, so close to 60,000. And then we see here, we lose a little bit more than half, maybe about a third of students enroll in post-secondary education. And then all the way down to the far right is half of that number earns a credential. So we're losing lots of students along the way. This can be because of lots of reasons, but I'm sure finances is at the top of that. Also, I'm sure it's personal reasons at home, or maybe it wasn't a good fit, but affordability definitely plays a role in students graduating. Also, graduation rates vary. So lower graduations for low-income students and students that are first generation. This chart here depicts low-income and first-gen students. So if you look at the blue on each of these charts, those represent students that are both low-income and first-generation students, versus the students in the purple that are neither low-income or first generation. There's a huge gap there. It sounds like we have lots of work to do in the state, and this is all of our responsibility to help students to get through to graduation. So one, they're not in debt. Two, they can get to making those big earning potentials, and then also contributing to our state. And this is no surprise, I don't think, to anybody here, but there are lower graduation rates for students of color. As you can see on this chart, for Black students, they are amongst the lowest on this group compared to their white counterparts. Even compared to brown students, they are the lowest earnings of degrees for these folks. So this chart is looking at bachelor's, associates degrees, and compared to the number of students that are within that population. So lower graduation rates for students of color. And then also credential completion varies by region. I really like this chart a whole lot. It breaks up graduation rates based on what degree type students are earning and also where they live. As you can see in like the Kansas City, St. Louis area, lots of students are earning those bachelor's degrees for students. And then for some of these other areas in the state, the associate's degrees are the highest. And so really cool to take a look and see what region of the state you live in and look and see, is this accurate of what I'm thinking where students are going, and maybe why students are taking these routes as they are going, graduating from high school, going on to their next credential. Now we'll talk a little bit about MOCAN. So like who we are, why we exist, what our initiatives are across the state. So MOCAN stands for the Missouri College and Career Attainment Network. We are a new-ish organization, and I say new-ish because we are the result of two organizations merging in January of 2022. So we have only been around for about a year. So if you are from the St. Louis area, you might be familiar with an organization called St. Louis Graduates, who did something called PDIs for about a decade or so, and some other initiatives. And there was an initiative called Missouri College Access Network that existed. So those were the two that combined to make our new MOCAN, which includes strategies around career. So here is our goal. I think it's very ambitious, but we're working towards it every day. But it's to transform lives by creating a more equitable statewide post-secondary education system. We are doing this work focusing on a couple groups of students across the state. One is BIPOC students, so Black, Indigenous, Latinx, people of color, students from low-income communities. And then we also realize we need to include initiatives and strategies around students from rural communities, and then also adult learners across the state if we want to get to some of our Missouri goals with credentialing. We are an organization that does not work directly with students. We like to think of ourselves as a network of networks. We work with the folks that are in direct service, and we'll talk a little bit about more about that on the next couple slides. So we all know students need a couple of things in order to earn a credential, and a lot of those things are what Kaitlyn and I just talked about. One is around like knowing how to go. And so what are all the pathways that exist after high school? Traditional college is not the best route for everybody. It might not be the first route for some people. It might be a later step in their life, but we need to talk about like what are all the different pathways that lead to lifelong learning and lead to contributing to the state. Also, we need to talk more about like the ability to pay for college. It's nice to go, but it's also nice to go and not feel like you're indebted for the rest of your life. I'm still paying on loans. Like we're all probably still paying on loans for a really long time. And so that's something that we don't want our future students to have to think about paying their loans for 10, 20 years after they complete their credential. And then finally, once students are in the place where they've decided what their next steps are, how do we support them through to graduation? Whatever that graduation looks like, if it's earning a certificate, if it's earning or an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, whatever it is, how can we support students through that? So the first strategy is really my focus is around access. And so if you haven't heard before, we offer a free statewide resource for high school counselors and advisors. So if you're working directly with students that are deciding their next path, PDI might be a good place for you to come. And then I mentioned free, I'm gonna say free a lot of times, but over the last couple of years, we had over 600 counselors from 300 schools and organizations to participate in our workshops. These workshops happen in person. These workshops happen virtually. Of course, the last few years have been virtual heavy, and I think that's nice for people if they can't get out and commit a whole day to traveling. But we offer workshops in one of these four pathways. And so around financial aid, lots of workshops around that, around career pathways. And this is a new one for us. So we're slowly trying to incorporate these into our workshops. Match and fit, like Kaitlyn and I have been talking about earlier. We want to make sure students are matched up with the great institution that matches their academic abilities, but also is it a financial fit? So that's something we talk a lot in our workshops about, and also advising strategies. And so are you working with students that are first gen? Are you working with students that are interested in going to an HBCU or an HSI, or students that have learning differences? Those are some of the workshops that we offer in this area. We don't claim to be the experts at any of this. We connect to experts that are in our state and then also nationally. So we work with our state association for financial aid personnel, with MassFab, NCAN, if you've heard of the College Attainment Network, the National College Attainment Network, USpire, who are experts around affordability and financial aid, and then many more folks across the state. So MOCAN really is the connector to all of those, bringing them to college advisors and counselors across the state. So here's some of our workshop topics. These were our fall schedule, and then here's our spring schedule that we have. So lots of workshops that we've had over the last couple of semesters. Right now on the spring semester, our next workshop up is around exploring non-degree programs and apprenticeships. If you guys are interested in attending any of these workshops, like I mentioned, they're free. You can register at the link here. So just the mocollegecareer.org/events. Our schedule is up there. All of our workshops for the remaining spring semester is posted there as well. If any of those topics sound really interesting, but you might have missed it, they might have happened in the fall, or maybe we've already done them in the spring, we have a portal. So what we call the PDI portal. So we post all post-workshop materials here. So our recordings, the materials, any notes, any documents that were shared are all available for free on our portal. All you have to do is go there, create an account, create a profile, and then you have access to all of our recordings from the fall and spring semester. Even if you're interested in topics that are coming up and you can't attend in real time, feel free to still register, because you'll get a note from me just saying, hey, the recording is up and ready for you to view. So feel free to do that. As you can see over here to the right, this is just an example of what you see when you'll enter the portal. So you'll have access to that recording, the presentation, any notes, things like that are there for you to use for free. Also around my work, we have formed a college and career readiness network. This list includes folks around the state, so some statewide organizations, some local organizations probably close to you in your home. And so we are convening on a quarterly basis just to really talk about what students are experiencing, what challenges, and what it is that we can do together that none of us can really do by ourselves. And so is it advocacy avenues? Is it implementing new programs? Is it suggesting a new topic for a professional development workshop? So what is it that we all can contribute to, and then what is all we can benefit from? So here's some organizations. Hopefully you recognize some of these folks, but we're working together to see what we can do to increase access for students across the state.
Great, I'm going to share a little bit about the rest of what MOCAN does. My work is around affordability, and our affordability work has focused on My Scholarship Central. So if you're not familiar with My Scholarship Central, it's a free online scholarship search and application portal. And our goal is to connect Missouri students to more than 100 different scholarship and interest-free loan programs. And we have programs for students in Missouri, but we also have some for the Metro East and a few national programs as well. We have over 10,000 students use the platform each year and award more than $11 million annually in scholarships and interest-free loans. I'll talk more about My Scholarship Central at the end of the presentation as well. And then our other colleague, Trent Ball, he leads our success work. So we've gotten a student into college, they're able to pay for it. Now we need to get them graduated. So the success work is our post-secondary equity network, which is a group of 20 colleges and universities that are committed to eliminating equity gaps in degree completion. So we work with teams from the school to say, what's your plan? What's your equity plan here? How are you supporting students? How are we getting those graduation rates up? Because we saw earlier in the presentation, Pell versus non-Pell, students of color versus white students. There's some significant gaps and we have some work to do there. So that's what the Penn network does. And that membership is always changing, but here's our current group of Penn institutions, and we're really grateful for their commitment to equity and the work that they do. We are Missouri College and Career Attainment Network. So we also focus on career. So like Cherelle said, in PDI, we often are talking about careers. We do multiple sessions a year talking about career, apprenticeship, advising around careers, and we focus on that. We also help support and are planning our own career and apprenticeship showcase. So think of a college fair, but for apprenticeships and career programs instead of colleges. So St. Louis County is hosting 3 of them starting in just a couple weeks, and then we will be hosting one in Sikeston later in the spring. We also have been doing work with Penn around career in a collaboration with Complete College America called Purpose First. So helping students think through, like, why am I here? Why am I at college? What am I doing next? And how do I make sure that my college experience is preparing me for a career down the line? We also do research and communication. So we are working on, in the past, have done these degrees with less debt reports. So looking at Missouri institutions or schools that Missouri students go to and say, who's graduating and what are they doing? What is the key here? And so we've done 2 of those reports, and we're working on one now with 2-year institutions. And then we've also been looking at affordability and aid and what's just going on with student aid in the state. Okay, so that's MOCAN. We'll take a quick pause here. Any questions on MOCAN and who we are and what we do? Okay, great. Then I will jump in and talk more in depth about My Scholarship Central, because I hope this will be a resource that's helpful for all of you. So like I said, My Scholarship Central is a collaborative scholarship search and application website. We have opportunities for all types of students. Most of our opportunities are for high school seniors because that's what people get excited to fund. But we also have opportunities for current college students and adult learners, and we do even have one program for 9th graders. So there is something for everybody on our site. Most importantly, we are free and easy to use. We don't have ads on our site. We don't sell student information. We don't spam students, and we want to make the process as easy as possible for them. My Scholarship Central's model is kind of like Common App. So if you're familiar with Common App for college, where colleges are all running their own independent admissions process, but using one application, My Scholarship Central is very similar to that. We've brought together more than 60 different nonprofit organizations who are all administering scholarships to have their application in one place. So the 3 foundations at the top, the Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis, the St. Louis Community Foundation, and the Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation, their programs make up the majority of opportunities on our site. And so each of these organizations has a team of staff members who are administering those scholarships, collecting the applications, reviewing them, and making the awards. I spend most of my time working with our different nonprofit and community organizations to help them administer their scholarships. So those images at the below give you some ideas of who's involved. It's not everybody, but we have fraternities and sororities, cultural groups, state chambers of commerce, family foundations, community service organizations, different nonprofits who are offering a scholarship and want to be part of a collective effort to help more students have the ability to pay for college. So the way My Scholarship Central works, to start an application, students go to myscholarshipcentral.org/apply, and there will be an orange Apply Now button that they should click. They can then create an account. They'll do their email and a password, and then they will get a confirmation email. Click the link in the confirmation email, and you're in. Students then complete our general application. The general application is very basic. Students can think of it like their profile. This information is seen by all the scholarships they apply to and is used to match students to scholarships. So we code in our system, this scholarship requires a 2023 graduation rate. They have to live in these counties and have this GPA. If you meet those requirements, those scholarships will now show up on your recommended list. So students, that takes that 150 different scholarships and puts them into a much smaller list of recommended scholarships for the student. Students then need to apply to specific scholarships. Just doing the general application does not qualify a student for any money. It's really important that they continue on and are applying for specific scholarships. That's where they'll do things like write essays, submit their resume, do letters of recommendation, and provide any additional information that the specific organization is looking for. My Scholarship Central is also all virtual, so we have no paper involved in our system. Students upload all documents, all letters of recommendation go through our system. So it's really meeting students where they are digitally and technology-wise. So this kind of gives you an idea of what the site looks like once the students are in. So they've done their general application, and then it has matched students to the scholarships that they qualify for. They can click on the name of the scholarship to read more about it and to see if it's a good fit for them, and then click the orange apply button to actually complete and submit the application. And students are welcome to apply to as many scholarships as they qualify for and that they have time to. Students who do well in our system are usually applying to multiple scholarships. And one of our models is that a student hears about, okay, my church has a scholarship. Let me go apply for the church scholarship. And then they see this recommended list that has 12 other scholarships on it, and they realize, oh, there's more out there than just the one opportunity from my church. They apply to other scholarships, and they end up receiving multiple awards that are able to fill that gap that we talked about earlier in the presentation. So the general application opens at the end of August. If you are working with junior students or younger students, don't have them complete a general application until school has started senior year. So to be safe, wait till September of senior year to start that general application, because we clear those out every year. And if a student starts working on it summer before senior year, they'll lose their work. So that general application opens in late August, early September. We have a few scholarships open in the fall, but most of our scholarships open in January and February. So right now we have 123 scholarships open because it is February, it is prime application season. We have deadlines starting March 1st, but most of our deadlines come mid-April. So we have some that go into May, a few that go into June, but by the end of June, beginning of July, there are very few scholarships open. So it's really important that students know that they need to be applying early so they're not missing out on opportunities. All that being said, each scholarship sets their own award timeline. So we have some that are a little bit off cycle. Some are only open in the fall, some are open a little bit more through the spring and into the summer, but most of them follow that January to April or May timeline. So a few fast facts, like I said, most types of students, high school seniors, current college students, adult students, we have that one program for high school freshmen. Last year, $13.5 million in scholarships and interest-free student loans were awarded to about 3,000 students. And we are always looking for more scholarships. We want My Scholarship Central to be a place of abundance. We want every student who comes on to find a scholarship that's a fit for them. So if you know any scholarships who might be a good fit for My Scholarship Central, please reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you. We're usually looking for scholarships from nonprofits, an award of at least $500, a clear and fair application process, and no kind of application or membership fee required. And again, the website that students apply, myscholarshipcentral.org/apply. A couple other resources I want to talk about is we have the My Scholarship Central search tool. So this is a tool we built a few years ago with scholarship providers across the state. We know that My Scholarship Central does not have every opportunity in the whole state. There are many other organizations that have their own application systems, and we want to connect students to those. So this is an easy way for students to do that. they can go to myscholarshipcentral.org. They'll scroll down to a map of Missouri and they select their region. And if they're not exactly sure which region they're in, they can click on a region and you'll be able to see the list of the counties in the region, and you can figure out which one that you live in. You can then click View Scholarship Providers, and you'll see the list of major providers in your area and click through to apply directly with them. We don't have every single scholarship provider on here, but we do have organizations that are giving out hundreds of thousands of dollars each year and have multiple opportunities for students. And this can be a great place to start the scholarship process. So you know who the players are, what their timeline is, how to apply with them, and you can make your application plan from there. This gives you an idea of who our partners are with the search tool. So we have the opportunities from Scholarship Central, but we also have Community Foundation of the Ozarks, which serves the entire southern region of Missouri. We have the Truman Heartland Community Foundation, Casey Scholars, and the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, which all serve the Kansas City area. And then we have the Community Foundation of Northwest Missouri, which serves the Northwest region of Missouri. So here's all of our contact information for MOCAN, for Scholarship Central. We are here if anybody has questions. But hopefully this was helpful and you learned something and you found a way to connect with our work.
Well, you already know that I'm a huge supporter and love what you guys are doing. So very helpful to see the data because I haven't had a chance to review all of it and really understand, you know, the initiatives that we have going on hopefully are driving to better have a response and, you know, better understand the needs of Missouri students and helping them really find the pathway that makes the most sense for them. So love what you guys are doing. Excited to also talk about My Scholarship Central in my session this afternoon. Great job as always.
Thanks, Alex.